Bryson asked a question. It's kind of funny. I noticed that in the perfect workout, you use the glute thrust machine. Does kettlebell swings and banded walks not emphasize the glutes enough? How important is it to get one of those hip thrust machines? And is there any substitutes? Well, you know what? I feel like you should sing a song. I like glutes. Glutes like me. Okay, we'll stop right there. Do you need a hip thrust machine? Are kettlebell swings good enough? I get these questions all the time. And here's why I like the hip thrust machine is, and this is going to sound kind of weird, it's almost, and I said almost, idiot proof, especially the way we do it at my gym, where you have you're holding the band down so your abs are working isometrically. You have the glute loop on your just above your knees, so you're pushing your knees out against it. And then we use bands because that way I can assure when you pause at the top, it's just not a lockout. I know you're getting pulled down the whole time. So if you do it the way I do it, I think the hip thrust machine is the best glute exercise there is. And I don't think I'd have believed that any other time in my career until now. Kettlebell swings are great glute exercises. You know what? I think hill sprints are great hill exercises. Certain kinds of front squats, overhead squats, and back squats are great glute exercises, especially if you're kind of born. Some people get a lot of glute work out of squats. Some people don't. It's kind of sometimes the way everything's shaped. But you'll notice something, Bryson, that, and I hate this phrase because people get on me online that I never answer questions. But it does depend. It depends. If your kettlebell swing is crap, I mean, you don't have a good swing, there's not enough intensity, you don't really throw the bell forward, it's sloppy like you see, I see these crap kettlebell swings where it's just, yeah, you're getting work in, but it's not good work. It's not going to carry over into a sport, I can tell you that. So kettlebell swings done correctly are really a good glute exercise for almost every person I've ever worked with. And the nice thing about kettlebell swings for glute work is you don't really feel it as much because there's so much else going on, but you might be able to see it in a few weeks. Why I include that in the perfect workout, what I'm trying to do is this. In Chinese medicine, the shoulders and the hips are called the four knots. You want them to be like a shoelace. You want it tight enough to stay on, loose enough that you can untie it. That's a shoelace, right? So I want your shoulders and hips as strong as you possibly can, but I also want them as loose as you can. So you'll notice that the exercises, the half kneeling press opens up the hip flexors, the psoas muscle. The hang is, I call it poor man's chiropractor. It really loosens the shoulders up, and the Kauai study proved that to be true. The hip thrust is a great glute exercise, so that's going to straighten me up in my chair. And at the top, there's the opposite kind of stretch on the psoas muscle. This kind of stretch versus that kind of stretch on the hip thrust. For those of you listening, I apologize for what you just didn't see. When you go to the goblet squat, overhead squat, it's kind of still a glute exercise, kind of, but it's also a great mobility exercise and test and assessment for your shoulder and hips and knees and ankles and everything else. And then when you go to suitcase carry, of course, that is, I think, the best of the loaded carries and the best way to knit up the ab wall. So, Bryson, do you need to do it? I think in one of the videos I share the Bulgarian goat bag swing. That probably would be a better option for you if you don't have the hip thrust machine. Make sure you put your toes on a 2x4 or some plates. And I would strongly recommend a glute loop on that and push your knees apart. That might be just perfect for you. But if you have the budget, get that hip thrust machine. If you don't, the Bulgarian goat bag swing. I made up that name, and I'm very proud of it. People keep stealing my names and then never giving credit. There are now people who have invented the armor building complex on Instagram, which just cracks me up. So that's why I have such stupid names. Great question, and I really, really appreciate it. Okay.